Hello, hello, everyone. How are you? Get your teacup. I'm ready. I'm so ready to join you today. I can't tell you. Let me get a sip. In fact, today, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm so glad that you're here. And we're going to be talking about genealogy. And we're going to be specifically talking about how not to fall down Alice's rabbit hole. You guys said you wanted to do that. So that's what we're going to do. And I, of course, am Louise Cooke, and I'm coming to you from Texas. And I have to tell you, we just found out last night we had our first reported case of coronavirus here in our little town. So it's scary when it comes close to home, and I know it's close to home for a lot of you. And I just want to talk for a second. Let's just get this off the table. Can we just say it out loud? This is really unprecedented and kind of scary. And on a daily basis, I feel like I'm doing really good. I mean, on the surface, I can find stuff to do and everything, and thank God nobody in our family is ill. But deep down, my gosh, there's an anxiety there that I don't typically experience. And I don't know if, I'm guessing you might be feeling some of the same. And it's just that incredible unknown. You know, it's just the fact that we don't really know what's coming, and everything's getting canceled, and we're all hunkering down, and that's a good thing. And I'm really glad that everybody is kind of getting on board with that. But this is not canceled, and I think Elevenses hopefully will be our time together to just kind of feel good about the fact that we are all still very, very much connected, and we very, very much share a love for genealogy. So that's how I'm feeling. And I think as a grandma, I think probably the hardest part is not seeing kids and grandkids. And, you talk on the phone and we FaceTimed and all that kind of stuff, but it's just not quite the same. I miss those hugs. So we'll be getting hugs soon. I need a cup of tea. All right. So, let's see. So this is your chance to have some tea, relax, connect, chat. And I know we've had people on our chat. Bill is monitoring chat for us because that's supposed to be part of live. Okay. Oh my gosh. We have people tuning in from Essex, England, Scotland. I've been to Edinburgh. It's lovely, lovely, lovely. Ontario, Canada. Of course, I've spoken in Ontario, Surrey, England, and of course, places around the United States. I've seen Waltham, Massachusetts, and we had I think we saw Indiana, New York. Oh, every state. Gosh. God bless you all in New York. You've been through so much. And anyway, my gosh, if this pandemic had happened 20 years ago, how alone would we really have been? So it's a blessing. It's a blessing to be here today and be able to do this live. I hope that you will let your, oh my gosh, I touched my tongue, see? I figure if you hold your nibbles, your cookies and your tea, then you can't touch your face. So that's my excuse for having both today. Let's see here. Oh, okay. So I wanted to check in. I was just juggling everything last week, trying to figure out how to make this thing happen. And I loved going through all of your comments, both on Facebook, the Facebook Live feed, people who watched it afterwards at Facebook, and also on YouTube. And Joanne wrote a comment. She said, love the oval frame behind you. Behind me. It reminds me of my Victorian great-grandparents. I have one saucer from a pattern that belonged to my great-grandmother called Heritage Roses. I will share Elevenses by drinking tea from my Windsor Castle blue mug available in the Castle gift shop. Well, Joanne, in honor of you today, this is I bought this at Buckingham Palace. It was the first time I went to speak at Who Do You Think You Are Live. Now, that was a huge conference they did in London, and then they moved it to Birmingham, and we miss it. But this was my royal teacup, and I love this. It's so beautiful. The box it came in was so beautiful, I couldn't throw it away. Also, let's see here. Dana wrote in. So Dana says, we were talking about using our grandma's china last week. She says, I use the china and crystal each holiday, and I taught the grandkids how to use the silverware. Good grandma. My granddaughter was in a home ec class when the teacher asked the students to set a place. How many kids know how to do a place setting these days? My granddaughter was the only one who knew how, even when the teacher asked, when she added 2 more pieces of silverware. I was so proud of her. Oh, you should be, Dana. That's amazing. I remember that was one of the first things my mom taught me how to do. And even now I still I got to put the forks and the knives and the napkins have to be in the right spot because I'm so used to that. Marcia watched this the video recording afterward on YouTube, on the Genealogy Gems YouTube channel. And she said, my mother has a set of Franciscan desert rose that she inherited from her mother. That was like my grandma's that I used last week. Mom uses it often and has expanded on it a lot. And you've made me realize how meaningful it would be for me to inherit it and use it. Great, Elevenses, and looking forward to the next one. Awesome. I'm so glad if our time here together has inspired you to pull out grandmas and moms and great grandmas china. I think it should be used. So I was talking to you about my nibbles because Marcia had, it was Karen from Central Mississippi. She said she watched with her tea and scones. So I was thinking about which treat I wanted to make to be able to eat. And I was eating them as I was getting everything set up for today. These are sour cream cookies. Oh, and I was going to show you the picture of the frame picture we were talking about. You guys really can't see it very well probably in the video, but this is the frame picture. And that is my grandmother. So that's Alfreda Sparowski. And she was born in Illinois, but her parents were from Prussia. You guys have heard me talk about her on the podcast. So, okay, so the story behind these little cookies that I made, when I first got married, Bill would tell me, oh, you're such a good baker. Oh, I love the stuff that you make. I just wish you could make Grandma's sour cream cookies. And I was like, I can make cookies. I could do cake. I did cake decorating for a while when the kids were little. And so I looked up some recipes and I found one for sour cream cookies and I made it and he tasted it and he's so wonderful. And he says, oh, those are wonderful. They're not like Grandma's. I went, oh, okay. So pretty soon, you know how, as a genealogist, I'm on a mission now. I have to find the perfect sour cream cookie recipe. And I checked in with his mother and she didn't seem to have it. She says, gosh, I don't remember. She gave me her recipe box. So anyway, I was teaching a presentation in California, and this was, about 10 years ago. And I'm telling this story about, I just diverted and kind of went down a rabbit hole and said, my husband loves these sour cream cookies, and they were in his family. A woman came up to me after the presentation, and she says, I have an old cookbook from Winthrop, Minnesota, which is this little town where this Larson family, Bill's mother's family, is from. She says, I'll send it to you. Okay, great. So I thought, well, I wonder if it'll show up. And it did. She sent me the First Lutheran Church, Winthrop, Minnesota cookbook. Isn't this amazing? And I wrote an article about this, and I will put a link when I repost this video so that you can kind of check out how this was not dated. So I did a little genealogical investigative work to figure out when it was published and kind of correlated the people in the book with the census. So, of course, I'm racing to the cookie section and I look and I don't see a Larson recipe, but I see one from Hulda Anderson, and it's a sour cream cookie recipe. And I think I have it here to show you. So I'm so excited, and I'm looking at the census and I see that the Andersons are like fairly close by neighbors, just a block or two away, and they attend the same church. And I make these cookies. And of course, Bill at this point, he's ready to, break it to me gently. He takes a bite and he's like, oh my gosh, that's Grandma's cookies. Can you imagine? Genealogical serendipity. This has happened to you, right? I mean, it's mind-blowing how often things like this happen. So I just had to share that with you. And I'll share the whole story and kind of some of the genealogical digging I did in an article. In fact, let me look here. Oh, here it is. So it's called Family History Never Tasted So Good. So I'll have a link to that when I repost this video. Check it out. It's really fun. It'll make you want to go back through the old recipes you inherited and maybe even some of the old cookbooks and do a little more digging, and you can start to see the connectedness of the people in your ancestors' neighborhood and community. Of course, it's all about community. So I also wanted to follow up with you because, no, I keep doing this, but see, it's only me. I'm just touching me. So I want to follow up with you on Snooze Tabby. Okay, so some people said, oh my gosh, I love this. Melody said she loved it, but when she went to look at it, it was an owl icon. And I was showing you last week that it would look like a half moon, like on an outhouse. And that's how it installed originally on my computer. But she's absolutely right. They have gone to an owl, which I guess makes sense, you know. So anyway, so look for when you see the owl, you'll know you do have the correct Snooze Tabby. And I'd love to have you put in the comments as you're watching this live, let me know, did you reopen a tab this week? Was that not the coolest thing? And if you missed last week, of course, you have to watch the video here on our Facebook page, but it's Control and Shift and T on a PC. And I believe I looked it up. I think it's Command Shift T on the Mac. So that is just the niftiest thing. I used it a couple times this week after telling you guys about it as well. So if you have any questions along the way as we're meeting here today, do leave them in the comments section. Bill, you're doing your very, very best, aren't you, to try to keep up with everybody and see what people are saying. Cool. He'll let me know if there are some questions you want me to answer. I do want to answer one question that came up. Let me get to the right place here. Okay, so Trisha messaged and said she loved the Elevenses show, and she also loves the show Good Life, which I was talking about. Good Life, Good Neighbors here in the U.S., I think. She says, I used to listen to your podcast when we would travel, but with so many podcasts now being stored in the cloud, I can't listen in the car. So I listen while cooking. P.S. You were the first podcast I ever listened to way back when. That's very cool. Thank you. Okay, so I know some people have this sense that, well, they're in the cloud, and so I can't do it when I'm in the car because it's not on, a streaming service. But I want to show you. So let me go here. So this is the Genealogy Gems app. And you'll notice that when you get the app, which is available in the App Store, it's absolutely free in Google Play. And in the Apple App Store, they won't let us put it in there for free. So it's actually $2.99, but it's a one-time purchase, and then you get the show for free, and it's forever. Every episode has this little download icon, and that's the way to do it. Is you're on your Wi-Fi at home, tap the download button, and that will download that episode to your phone. And that way you can listen when you're offline. Now, I want to show you when you get to an actual episode that you have downloaded, you'll notice that the icon is kind of a red color, and that shows you it is downloaded. So you can go ahead and press play. So now you're saying, well, in the car, I still can't hear it very well because maybe I don't have a way to stream it through my radio. I have a trick for you. Okay, so here's my phone. When you are in the app and you have the thing playing,
welcome to the Genealogy Gems
that's great, but it's kind of quiet in the car. Turn the volume all the way up.
News and entertainment and inspiration.
And stick it in a cup.
And I'm your host, Louise Cooke.
It really amplifies. Now, you can use just a regular cup and stick it in your cup holder. If you have a fairly deep cup holder, just put your phone speaker down, and it amplifies it, and you'll be able to hear it in the car, even with all the car noise. So that's my tip of the day, so that you can listen to podcasts when you are traveling in the car as well. Not that there's that many places we can travel right now, is there? But that's okay. If you end up going to the store, take me with you. I want to make sure I come with you. All right, well, let's see what else is going on here. See, I didn't touch my mouth. Okay. Alice presentation. So I asked you last week if you would like me to do how Alice the genealogist avoids falling down the rabbit hole. And many of you said yes, absolutely. Gail says That sounds like a great webinar. I will be trying the YouTube tips we talked about last week later today, and we'll share the article on my Genealogy Society Facebook page. She is a member of the Fox Valley Genealogical Society. They are such a great group. I've spoken up there. And so let's do that, okay? Because I want to, I think what I'm going to do is, since we kind of get together for about a half an hour or so, I took a look at the presentation, and I've never done it online before. It's not part of membership or anything. And I think that we can divide this up into 4 sessions. So I'll commit to you that we'll get together at least for the next 4 weeks. How about that? Now, I want to keep doing this forever. This is so much fun. But I'm going to break it into about 4 sections. So we'll do, 10 or 15 minutes, and let's jump in right now. Okay. So this is your Learn at Home session with me. And today we are going to be doing, of course, how Alice, the genealogist, avoids the rabbit hole. And you guys all know what I'm talking about with a rabbit hole, right? It's when you're doing some research and you just start going down 7 different directions, and pretty soon it's hard to remember where you have been. In fact, I imagine all the little rabbits are feeling this way. Oh my gosh, here they come, right? Tumbling down the hole. Are you okay? Yes, well, hopefully we're going to keep you out of their rabbit holes here, because this is what the experience is like. So you're thinking, okay, well, I want to find where great grandpa lived, and I go search in Ancestry, and I saw 3 new hints. Oh my gosh. So I clicked them, and then one of them was from a newspaper story, and I hadn't seen that before. So I went over there and there was a story about his brother, and I was trying to figure out, where is that town from? And pretty soon you are falling down a rabbit hole. And the first question is, what was I looking for? Has that happened to you? Leave a comment under the video if that has happened to you, because hopefully we're going to solve that. So what we're going to talk about is how you can avoid this. And there are some very concrete strategies that we can follow. The first thing we need to do, and we're going to do that in today's session, is clearly identify the problem. I think the reason the hole is so easy to trip into is because we really don't have a focused problem that we've identified. We start to get it's kind of vague, and that leaves doors open all over the place. We're also going to talk about a game plan that provides strategies for staying focused. I love a good game plan. That way you kind of know where you're headed, and when you get off track, you can look back at the game plan and you can jump back on the ship. We're also going to talk about how to learn how to keep track of the items that would distract you. Keeping track of those items. This is key, because the stuff that's distracting you actually might be really awesome stuff, and you don't want to lose it. And that's one of the reasons we chase it down the hole, is we think, if I don't do it now, this is my only chance and I'll forget. I have a really good system for you for tracking these and getting back to them so that you can stay focused on the task at hand. And we are going to explore free tech tools that save time and increase your productivity. I think you'll love these. You liked Snooze Tab. We've got lots of different other tech tools I want to share with you in this presentation to kind of help you increase your productivity, stay on task, have it all hum together beautifully. So what makes us vulnerable to rabbit holes? I was thinking about this. You have to know where your weaknesses are and what your vulnerabilities are in order to be able to deal with them and to fix them and to put things in place that keep you on track. So one of the first vulnerabilities that we have to rabbit holes is, again, not having a clear research question. Now, if you've been doing genealogy research for a while, you've probably heard people in classes and things, and you know that it's a good idea to have a research question. But let's be real. How often do you sit down and concretely put that together and do that before you jump in and start doing the research? If we do that, we're going to do a lot better. The second vulnerability is not mapping out what your next move is going to be. So, being aware of, if this is the goal and I want to think through what are some of the moves I'm going to take, because I don't want to just do what's the first thing I'm going to look for, but I want to have a couple of things so I know what the big picture looks like. I don't end up getting kind of a blinders on, because one source could be fantastic. It's really helping provide tremendous evidence, and you get excited, and then pretty soon you kind of lose track of, you really still need more evidence. In fact, I just interviewed Kate Ekman from Legacy Tree Genealogist. She's going to be on, I think it's the next podcast episode or the one after that. And it's all about evidence and proof. And when you get a great piece of evidence, it can be easy to get off track and forget to go get the other pieces that you need. Number 3 is not having a way to deal with BSOs. You know what BSOs are, right? Let's hear it. Bright, shiny objects. BSOs. We all suffer from them. They pop up, they glitter, and they get our attention, and we just go, I will follow you. But because we don't have a strategy on how to deal with them, how to capture them, how to not lose track of them, we are going to feel like it's now or never. And that's where the rabbit hole comes in. So we're definitely going to have some solid strategies for you on how to deal with those. Number 4 is having a plan, sitting in on, a class where we're talking about things like this, and then not going home and implementing them. So what I'm hoping is after each of our tea times together, you're going to take that week to implement the things that you're learning. That's really the key. It's the only way to kind of stretch the new muscles and get them working and get them into a routine. All right. Tea break. Everybody take a sip. Awesome. Okay. And we had a question. Will there be a handout? Yes, I will have a handout for you. So when we get this all finished up, I will have a link. In fact, I will see what I can do for this week, and maybe I can do that handout in pieces. So stay tuned. I will let you know here on the podcast page. And finally, number 5, no muscle. You just don't have it in you. You don't have the muscle to do it. Well, you do have the muscle. I know you do. But it's really stretching them. It's exercising them. It's using them. Oh, my computer wants to do updates. Forget that. Let's get that out of there. Okay. That's the thing, is when you do the practice, when you keep implementing what you're learning, you're going to build up those muscles. It's going to become more second nature. So even though I might say, oh, here's how you deal with the BSO, and it takes an extra second, maybe one more tool for you to use, do it a couple times, do it each week after we meet here together, and you're going to build up your muscles. I know you are. All of this is going to lead to rabbit holes. If you stay vulnerable in these areas, that's absolutely what's going to happen. So, number 1, let's go through the process. What's the first thing we need to do? We need to have a very clear research question. And if you haven't done this in a formal kind of a way before, here's your chance. So, writing a research question is actually not that complicated. And there are very smart people out there who have put together kind of guidelines on this. This comes from the Board of Certification for Genealogists, a great organization that really puts these guidelines together and helps guide genealogists with the process. And effective research questions, according to the BCG, comes from the Genealogy Standards number 10. This is part of the standards. And it says, questions underlying research plans concern aspects of identity, relationships, events, and situations. And right there, you see those individual words and you might think, oh gosh, when I take on a question or I feel like I'm going to go on a research project, I feel like I'm doing 3 of these at once. And that's one of the challenges. We need to break them down into individual research questions. The questions are sufficiently broad to be answerable with evidence from relevant places and times. They are sufficiently focused enough to yield answers that may be tested and shown whether or not they meet the genealogical proof standard. And this week, maybe put that on your list. If you haven't taken a look at the proof standard, Google it, genealogical proof standard. Also in my Family History Genealogy Made Easy podcast, which is available on the website, there's a couple of episodes where we talk specifically about the GPS. So again, according to BCG, genealogical research questions clearly describe this unique person not the whole group. Let's focus on a single person, maybe a group, but know the difference. Am I just talking about something that happened to great grandpa, or is it really this family as a unit? Define that. Or an event. Maybe there's something that's happened within the family's history, and that can help bring focus to your question. And clearly state what kind of information that you're hoping to discover. And that's interesting because sometimes we're just looking for what pops up on the screen, but really we need to think about what kinds of things would I expect to see? What should I be looking for? Such as information about identity, relationships, events, biographical information. Make a list of it. Get yourself a piece of paper, get an Evernote note, get a Word document, whatever you use. Do it in your genealogy database. But have a place where you write your question, you identify what it is you're actually researching, and specifically what you're expecting to find or hoping to find. So let's just write a really simple, basic research question. So here's my great-grandfather, Gus Borowski, my grandmother's father, the one in the picture. And I could say, well, where was my great-grandfather Sporowski born? Is that a good research question? It's a start, right? There is an event here. So I'm trying to look specifically for him. Some people, I wrote a book on Googling genealogy, the Genealogist Google Toolbox. And many people say, gosh, you really took me from just kind of looking for general, anything about this family, anything I can find, to, okay, Google searching is actually way more effective if you get way more specific. And so it's not just, is there anything on great-grandfather? What can I find willy-nilly? But it's, let's break down what's missing. Go through your database. What are the missing, the empty blanks? And in this case, I want to maybe just nail down where I think he was born. So that's a very specific event. I would tweak that question and get a little more specific and say, where is the birthplace of Gustav Sporowski, first name, last name, father of Elfrida? Now, to the best of my knowledge, I've never seen another Gustav Sporowski anywhere, but that's unusual, isn't it? We have way too many John Does in our family trees. So it really helps in the question to add a little extra specifics about who this person is and who they are within relationship to other people in your tree. So I'm talking, and you have probably, we all have branches where it's the same first and last name for 3 generations. So it really helps to say, okay, but this was the father of Elfrida, who resided in Gillespie, Illinois. Maybe that was the first place I found him. And he was there between 1910 and 1918. I don't know if he was born there, but that was the earliest location that I know about him. So you can see it's essentially the same question, but really far more specific. And if I were to go into a library tomorrow, you would want to be armed with this question, not just where was he born? Because the reference librarian is going to look at you and say, okay, wait a minute, who are we talking about? How many, I always tell you about the Larson family. How many Larsons are in Minnesota? No, we got to have something much more specific. So this is a very unique person. So let's go to number 2, which is to map out your next move. So to do this, you have to decide that it's really important to have a map, truly, because it's going to require a little more extra energy on your part. So just be aware, if you travel without a map, then it's never clear what is and isn't part of the route, right? Think about it. Your research plan tells you what the track is. And so when you have that map, it's way easier to realize, you know what, I am way off track. I am way off track. I need to save this and go back to the plan at hand. That's why this is so important. If you travel with a map, you're going to reflexively steer around the holes because you're going to recognize that they're not part of the route. That's really important. It's like when you hit a fork in the road and you're trying to get to somewhere for a vacation, you're going to look at your map and you know exactly, I'm skipping that road, we're going this way. It's the same thing in genealogical travels. Mapping your moves also reduces temptation. So you break the major research question down into individual research questions. I think that's really key. Look at your question. Do you really have 2 or 3 in there? I'm surprised. Even now, I'll write a question, I'll realize, that's really actually 2 questions. So I need to break that up and then go from there and create a map for each of them. So where is the birthplace of Gustav Sborowski, father of Elfrida, who resided in Gillespie, Illinois between 1910 and 1918? So that was my question, right? I could break this up. And when I'm mapping my moves, I might say, well, actually, one of the earliest questions I need in order to get here is ask the question, did he apply for citizenship? Because if he did, that kind of a record may have this information about his birthplace. So if so, what's listed on that citizenship record? So that might be one question and task to take on as part of this whole thing. This is part of my map. Question number 2, I might say, well, do I have the passenger list? Because I know he immigrated from Germany. That much I know. That was something that was talked about a lot in the family. So I'm pretty darn sure he wasn't born in Illinois. He was born in Germany. What place might be listed? What might I expect to find on that record? Well, I might expect to find his place of origin, at least the place he came from before he left the country. May not be his birthplace, but it's getting me a little further back. Third question might be, what was listed for other passengers who were accompanying him? So be aware, think about the kinds of records we're using and say, another question might be not even strictly on him, but those around him. Make sure I don't miss those. Make sure that's part of the plan that I'm following. And question number 4 is, where are other Sborowskis from that are listed in passenger list? This is actually one of the best questions I ever asked. It really is, my friends. When you're dealing with people and maybe their passenger list doesn't have the information you need, maybe they came far earlier and that kind of information wasn't there. In cases like this where I'm very fortunate, I have a very unique surname, I did a lot of research and I actually put a whole Excel spreadsheet together about where every Sborowski came from. It was eye-opening, and I mapped it out. It was tremendous. So according to Elizabeth Schoen Mills, after analyzing the existing data, we need to prepare a research plan that defines a few things. She says we need to define the resources that are going to be explored. So right there, we've been talking about passenger lists and other types of records. What are the resources that we're looking for? And we have to define the strategies to be applied. How are we going to get there? What are we going to do? Map out our game plan. And we need to also define the individuals who are to be included in that search. So this kind of all wraps back into what the BCG and the GPS were saying. And any special circumstances that are going to possibly affect the project. So this will be in the handout. Take this and maybe take one of the research questions that you've already defined or a problem that you've been dealing with. I know some people said in the comments they had some brick walls they were struggling with. Pick one of them. Challenge yourself to write the research question. Make sure that it's a single question and maybe couldn't be broken out into several. Then map out your game plan, which again is kind of, you saw we mapped out several different secondary kind of questions to get to the main question. And look through and make sure that your research plan defines these things. The resources, what are the kinds of documents you're going to get? Where are you going to find them? What would you expect to see in them? Is there anything special that we need to know? And maybe do a little bit of research on the kinds of records you're working with if they're not something that you've worked with before. Getting to know your record collections really makes a difference in helping you to understand what to glean from them and possibly even where to find them. Next week, we are going to go into step 3, which is to have a process for your BSOs. And I know you have them, those bright, shiny objects that are tempting you to get away from your map and your route and to fall down a rabbit hole. So we will do that next week. All right. Well, let's see. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it gives you lots to think about. You've got some things to work on this week. I wanted to share a couple things with you just before we kind of wrap up here. One, I had a message last week in the comments from Valerie, and she said, "Thank you for giving me your soothing voice as a birthday present." Happy birthday, Valerie. It's my birthday weekend. I've been sick since the 15th, so definitely self-isolating. His grace will be woven through this period too. Thanks for mentioning Joseph's story. Mention the story of Joseph in the Bible. My genealogy community is a bright spot during a complex season. It certainly is. Not just the genealogy community. Wow, I mean, it's been wonderful just that this has all kind of sprung together, and it's meant a lot to me. I hope it's meant something to you. I've been checking some of my favorite people over on Instagram, and one of them is Beth Forrester. And you might know that name because I did a webinar with her a couple of years ago in New York. She works for Animoto, and that's one of the companies that you can use to make family history videos. And I have lots of great information on my website on how to do that. I'll put a link with the other links that I'm going to give you for today. But I wanted to share with you something that Beth shared on her Instagram page. She just moved from Brooklyn to an apartment in Manhattan. I think she's near Greenwich Village. And she was saying that at 7 o'clock, all the nurses and doctors come off their shift. And as they do, everybody in the neighborhood welcomes them and thanks them. My friends, stay safe. Have a wonderful weekend. Give everybody lots of virtual hugs and know that I love you. Thank you for joining me. I'll talk to you soon.